Giving thanks is something that I do naturally. I was born on Thanksgiving Day. It doesn't fall every year on my birthday, but I think that from birth, that my mother was thankful and grateful for me. I know she was, and I believe from birth that shaped who I was as a person and what my destiny would be. I can remember as early in my childhood that things would happen that were just miraculous. I remember one day my mom running out of food, and she had cooked the last meal and was going to go lay down. And there was nothing left in the refrigerator. When I say that pantry was bare, the refrigerator was bare, there was nothing there. And I remember hearing a knock on the door. It was just that simple. And I remember my mother telling me she didn't hear anything. And I said, no, mommy, I heard a knock on the door. And I heard it again. And my mom said, Fatima, if you insisted there is a knock, I'll go and see. And when she opened up the door, she looked down on the ground, and there was a box of food at our front door. And I don't know who put it there. I'll never know who put it there, but I knew to give thanks. I also remember my mom telling us when we were kids, she was sorry that she had to give us hand-me-downs. She was sorry that she had to get our clothes from Goodwill or take whatever she could give us. And I remember saying to her, Mommy, don't be sad. They may be hand-me-downs, but they're new to us. So to us, they're new clothes. And I remember wiping the tears from her eyes. And I remember telling her how much I appreciated and I loved her, because I didn't want her to think that anything she did for us was inadequate. I even remember my father, when I had the chance to go and live with him, I remember he would have my brother over, who wasn't technically his biological son, but he would let him come over and visit at times. And me being a big sister, I wanted to look out for my little brother. I wanted to make sure he was okay. And my father took us to the Smithsonian, and we had a picnic downtown. And almost as a test, my dad, he said, okay, what do you guys want? And I told him I wanted an M&M's, and no, I wanted a Sprite, and my brother wanted a pack of M&M's. And because I know my daddy, he was going to give me anything that I wanted, I held my hand out assuming that he would give both of us the money to buy what we wanted. But my father tested me that day, and he said, I'm only going to give you $1, just one, and you've got to figure out what you're going to buy. And for me, that was too easy, no-brainer. I'm the big sister. It's my job to look out for my little brother. And so naturally, I told Cyree, hey, we're going to get whatever you want because you're the little brother. And it's so funny because my father smiled with one of the brightest smiles I've ever seen on his face. And he said, I knew you had it in you. I knew you had the capacity to share. And so he whipped another $1 out his wallet, and we skipped off, and we both got what it was that we wanted. Today, I want to give you this text. It's called, some people refer to it as the Sermon on the Mount. Some people refer to it as the feeding of Jesus of the multitude. It has many sermon topics and it's been taught many ways, but I just want to pull out some things in the text. This particular miracle can be found in the Gospel according to Matthew. Some people might call it Saint Matthew, and it's found in the 14th chapter, and it begins at verse 13 and goes all the way to verse 21. And it says that when Jesus heard what happened, he withdrew by a boat privately to a solitary place. Hearing of this, the crowds followed him on foot from the towns. When Jesus landed and saw a large crowd, he had compassion on them and healed their sick. As evening approached, the disciples came to him and said, "This is a remote place and it's already getting late. Send the crowds away so they can go to the villages and buy themselves some food. It's amazing that sometimes our beliefs are tested. Our beliefs are tested and our faith is tested, because here's an opportunity for the disciples. Jesus has been teaching and he's in an isolated place. Some would say that he was in a desert place. And I just want to say that this video ministry has been impactful for my life, and I've had cameras, I've had lights here, I've had makeup, I've had hair done, I've had wardrobes picked out, I've even had a phenomenal camera and photography session. But without this microphone, you wouldn't hear anything. Without lighting, you wouldn't see anything. But there was Jesus healing and preaching and teaching with not one single microphone, without one piece of technology. So as much of an awesome preacher as I think that I am, I still need one mic. And so I am so impressed by Jesus's fortitude to not get tired and not get weary of people. He's preaching to the crowds, he's teaching to the crowds, and there he is doing what he does best in ministry. And as Jesus is preaching, the people forget, because his word is so powerful, they forget to eat. Matter of fact, they didn't pack anything to eat. And so here you have all these hungry people that have gotten full off the word of God, and now they're hungry. It's amazing, because we go to church, right? And some of us do anyway. And everyone's watching that clock because they're getting hungry. Everyone's looking at that clock ferociously because they're ready for lunch. I know my children do. We get to church early and then, hey, we want to eat. Our human body wants food. And so it's only natural that we got to have a meal. We got to eat. But it's amazing that the people were so much impacted by the word of God that they forgot about their own physical needs. And so Jesus, being the best shepherd of all time, he wants to meet the need because he has compassion on them. And then he has a side conversation with his disciples. Oh, you guys know the disciples. They were a motley crew. Let me tell you, these guys did some stuff. John was so angry. He had such an anger issue. He wanted to burn down a whole town. Peter would cut you and drink. Thomas doubted. I mean, this crew of guys, they were a motley crew, to say the least. And these guys were so human and so real. And yet Jesus chose each of them. But after teaching and preaching to the multitude, he has a side conversation with them. I call it a sidebar. You know, when you go to court of law and the judge pulls you aside and they have a conversation and they debate the point amongst themselves because they don't want whatever is heard by the judge to necessarily be heard by the jury. And so they have a sidebar and they have that conversation privately, and the judge decides, he confers, she confers, whoever the judge may be, to figure out if they're going to let that testimony in. So Jesus doesn't embarrass his disciples. He understands that they're saying, hey, we can't afford to feed these people. We don't have much food ourselves. But he has that conversation, not out in the open in front of the whole congregation, but he has it privately. Let me ask yourself something. Is everything you discuss for everybody? Is every time you have a conversation, does everyone really need to know it? If you're in a marriage, do you really have to embarrass your spouse by pulling out all their dirty laundry in front of everyone? If you're a boyfriend or a girlfriend, do you really need to embarrass them or put them on Front Street? You don't have to do that. You don't have to handle people that way. Even as ministers in the gospel, sometimes we need to save some conversation for a sidebar. And we need to preach the word of God for the people of God and have a side conversation to deal with issues. Because there are some things that can only be worked out privately. If you love me, you can confront me in love, but you don't have to embarrass me in public. And so Jesus doesn't rebuke the boys in front of everybody, but he has a side conversation with them to assess the situation. And then he takes the 2 fish and the 5 loaves of bread and he gives thanks. He gives thanks. You mean to tell me that Jesus saw that there was not enough food to feed 5,000 men, not counting the women and children, and he takes it and gives thanks to God? How many times in our lives have we not had enough resources? We run out of money. We have more bills than we have money. How many times in our lives has it been that we don't have enough? We don't have enough degrees to get the job. We don't have enough accolades to win. We don't have enough talent. But Jesus takes the little bit that he has and he gives thanks to God. When is the last time that you didn't have enough, but you still gave thanks? When is the last time that maybe your marriage isn't perfect, maybe your relationship with your mom or dad isn't perfect, but you said, you know what, Lord, is not perfect right now, but I thank you for what I have. I thank you for the piece of relationship I have. I thank you for what it is that I can't see in front of me. I give you thanks. And he gave thanks. And don't you know that after he gave God thanks, that's when he had enough food to feed everybody? Are your principles only for convenience? The disciples were going to send the people away. Go away, go away. I'm only going to feed them if I have it. If I don't have it, hey, send them away. Is it good enough when you don't have enough to send people away because it's convenient, because that's what you want to do? Or should you take the little bit that you have, even in your struggling state, and give God thanks and share that gift or talent? Let me tell you, I would not be as far as I have gotten in life if it had not been for people who already didn't have enough, but they cared enough to share with me. I would not be able to get this ministry out to you if some people didn't take time out of their busy schedule to take their little pieces and put them with my little pieces to impact a nation of people. But because I could stop in the middle of my life and say, God, I will give you thanks, I am able to touch and to reach into your homes and into your schools and into your communities because I gave thanks. It's not about us, but it's about God. You can feed the world if you just take your little bit. You know, those broken pieces, and give them to God. And give thanks. I love you with the love of the Lord. And remember, prayer changes everything.